Journals by Life of Gaia. My name is Gaia, and I'm very, very excited for today's interview because I have a special lady and dear friend with us today who is a sound and vibrational specialist amongst a host of other talents and titles that she has. And so I would like to take a moment to introduce to you Dr. Samora, who brings healing through sound vibration and rhythm, making use of Native American and Vedic traditions. A warm welcome to you, Dr. Samora.
Thank you, Gaia. It's so great to be here in this space, and I'm excited to share this beautiful medicine with the world. And it has brought so much joy and healing and peace to myself, as well as the people that I've been able to share it with so far. So as she said, I'm Dr. Samora. I've been singing probably since I was in the womb. Music was always my way of connecting to what I felt was something beyond. I didn't know what to call it as a little girl, but I always was drawn to music. I didn't know that I was born with also what they term as perfect pitch. So I could hear a piece of music playing, I could hear a song on the radio and go straight to an instrument and be able to play it without any music in front of me. So I was blessed with this as, the creator, as I call it, has given me. And it's been a vehicle that's taken me around the world. When I was a teenager, I became very, very drawn to classical singing and pretty much obsessed with opera. I went to a school that's very famous. They made a movie about it called the Fame School. And the first year that I attended, they had moved and relocated to a new building, which was located right behind Lincoln Center. And if you could find a better location for a person obsessed with opera and classical music, that and Juilliard, like everything's right there in Manhattan in that little space. So I was blessed to have so much support around me. And by the time I was like 17 years old, I was scooped up by an orchestra that wanted to go travel around Europe and basically play in all these little like fancy spas where people were doing their healing, which I was amazed by because I didn't even realize that people use so much water in their healing in other cultures, because in the States you really see that. So that really opened my eyes to a lot of different modalities and different ways of healing. So in essence, I went away to do that work and do classical music. And then unfortunately I suffered a tragedy where the man, my stepfather, who had raised me, was afflicted with a terminal illness in my senior year of high school. So here I was touring all over the world, and I had one of my biggest fans. I have to be honest, he was the reason why I continued to sing. He passed the probably 2 weeks before I was to go off to conservatory, and I couldn't do it. Like I pursued it. Got a full scholarship for my talent to go to Oberlin Conservatory, and I spent 2 years there in grief, and not realizing that that's what it was because I didn't have people around me that could explain what that was. Um, but a lot of my singing and my voice was very much connected to my heart and very much connected to the people that I loved. And I remember very clearly one day my grandmother, who was at that time getting chemotherapy and radiation treatment, every bump in the car was painful. Every single thing you would do, she would just make her upset. But when I sang, she said everything went away. Everything just floated away. So I started to realize at a very young age that that was my medicine. That music, not just my voice, but that music was truly my medicine. So fast forward, when I became involved in the ministry, I was singing at the time just basically to make money and raise my family, but it wasn't bringing me that sense of purpose. And so what I realized now that I'm in my 50s that I have whatever I do in my life has to be connected to something more, some purpose. That I don't just do it to be on stage, or I don't just do it to gratify myself. That everything that I'm doing connected to music has to do with either bringing hope, bringing healing, bringing something of connection. And so a couple of years ago, I learned about the modality of sound and movement and vibrational therapy. And I was fascinated by it because I've always understood it. And even my eldest son, who's on the autistic spectrum, he doesn't, or at the time before he was 10 years old, did not speak words. But I could communicate with him through music. Like he would obsessively listen to the same songs and the same things over and over, and I didn't understand what that was. Now I understand because it brought him to a vibration of where he felt connected to something. And you don't need words. You don't need all of these things to understand what spirit and what our, relationship to spirit is. And so I learned a lot through him, not realizing that he was showing me the way. And so here I am today using my music. I write music, using my voice, using now these amazing instruments like drums and cymbals and tonal chimes, things like that, to bring people to synergy and to bring us, our bodies, our etheric bodies, our auras
I
to
believe you have
harmony.
something very special prepared for us.
Yes, I'm just going to share a small sample of what it is to go into this meditative state, this healing vibration through my voice and through my drum. And I'll just start out with one tone just to get, or maybe a few tones. This is the chordal harmony of water. So just take a deep breath because it just puts you in that beautiful flow of life. Ooh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. Hey, oh, hey, oh, oh, hey, oh. Hey, oh, hey, oh. Hey, hey, oh.
Thank you so much for that, Samora. That was incredibly beautiful. It sounded like this divine sound, and it definitely feels like you connect to something. I wanted to ask you, could you share your journey with us to becoming a sound healer and what sort of took you on this path?
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, sound and singing has always been my connection to spirit. When I was, alone in my room, I would write songs and pick up instruments everywhere I would go. Just always drawn to learning the nature and energy around music. And then when I started to learn about energy systems and chakras and aura, all the different chakral systems, and I started to see people's auras and the color and just the essence. And I would wonder why I'd walk down the street and, sometimes I could like feel somebody's, energy like way away from me. And I started to open up this gift of mine through my third eye. And the more I would open up this, I would start to feel and be told more things and understand more things. So it just felt like a natural transition that was always there for me to be something that I already was, which is a sound therapist and a specialist in attuning the soul. It's like a soul massage to have a sound bath.
Yes, because you actually started off as an opera singer. That was your training, right? And then you transitioned into sound healing, which I find very interesting.
Yes, and it's interesting too because my stepfather, who raised me from 7, 8 years old, I didn't know this until later in my adulthood, or it didn't click. He's Taino, and he was always bringing. He was military, which is this is the funny thing is that he was like in his like beautiful suits for military because he was high ranking. He was a general by the time he passed away. But every time I would see him, he would be in his, his fatigues or, his outfit. And then he always had drums in the house, and he always had these like amazing pieces like the frog where you play like I didn't, and at the time I did not know that these were these indigenous tools for healing. And so I would say that was my earliest, I think, nudge or introduction. I didn't know I was being, taught. And in terms of the classical piece of it, there's in sound vibration, there are tones that that are connected to our chakral system, and you can do healing work through the scale, through the actual do re mi fa sol la ti do scale that we learn in traditional Western classical music. I really believe in my heart of hearts that singing classical music is what was healing me. It was singing those tones. And when I would be in a choir of hearing these chords and voices singing these harmonies, something would physically happen in me. And I believe it happens in all of us, but we just don't know what to call it. And so I think it's why, in many respects, like you listen to Bach, for instance, Bach, especially when there's these chordal rhythms that repeat, it turns you into, or not turns you, but it inspires almost like a mathematical equation in the brain. So they have studied this, and they've shown that when you play certain pieces of classical music, that if a child is distracted or if they need to study, they put this on, and it brings sort of like this congruence to the brain system. So rhythm is also very therapeutic because we are rhythm. Our heart has a beat. And that's why in Native American tradition, you hear the pulse, and it's the heart. So the heart is what brings us to balance. It reminds us of when we were being created.
And there's also a significant scientific component to sound healing too, which is fascinating. I wanted to ask you, for someone who has never experienced a sound healing session, could you walk us through what what happens, how it takes place, what they could expect?
Yeah. So again, I always say the person holding the medicine is going to obviously be responsible for the experience that those people in that space have. So I can only speak to my own. Um, how I see it is that we are creating a sacred womb. And in that womb, we bring whatever it is that we want to release, whatever it is that we want to embody, whatever it is we want to set intention for. And that each person that showed up in that particular moment is there for a reason. And so once that container and those intentions are set, that's when my guides come in and they give me instruction. I don't take responsibility. That's why I hesitate always to call myself a healer, because it's not me. I am a channel, I am a portal. And so I am very gifted at creating sacred portals. And so that to me is what the sound healing journey is, because we don't know what you need. You may not even know what you need, but the sound and vibration does. So what happens in a sound healing or a sound bath? So a bath, the difference between a bath and say a session. A bath is something where we take all of our instruments and invite people and groups in. And what will happen is each vibration or tone or rhythm is going to attune to where it is being called to, because like attracts like. So it goes to what's needed, and then it attunes it. So people may come into my space and not know what's going on, and I'll play something, and all of a sudden, like especially when I do the sound bowls, their throat starts to close up, or they might feel like rumbling in their stomach, or their feet might start to move, or they'll feel like weird emotions, or the mind starts to race, like literally start racing. So oftentimes that is the vibration meeting where it's needed, and it's releasing whatever is needed to be released, but at the same time harmonizing. So you may initially like have this weird discomfort or strange feeling, but then the next day or something, you're like, whoa, like, you feel lighter, there's more clarity, and you can kind of, and sometimes it has shown people if there's something that needs to be addressed, like like blood pressure or heart murmur, something like that. So what I believe, because it's a non-physical contact, um, is that it's very gentle, and it's subtle. It's a subtle healing. And so the difference between the group, like the sound bath, and then the a personal session is, if a person is well trained and well attuned to that work individually, what they can do is go and scan your entire etheric body and your auric field, because that's where we carry memories. And many people don't realize that this immediate space right here is just right now. But then you go out about 7 layers, and the most far layer is your birth. So all these emotions and energies and entities, we call them, are sometimes stuck in our auric field. So if something happened to you in your 20s, let's say, that made a huge mark on you, and maybe you developed a chronic pain in your shoulder or your neck or whatever, sometimes if you just go there and address that fogginess or that dense material that stored itself as a memory, if you can lighten up that energy, it will actually release whatever that stuck pain or whatever chronic pain is.
Sound healing often incorporates a mix of, traditional and ancient instruments, right? And each seems to have a specific purpose or use or effect in the sound healing session. Could you speak into some of those instruments and what effects they may have?
Well, I will say, if you study and spend time with indigenous culture, African, Native American, South American, they already knew. We were born as a tone. And so we all carry our own song. We all carry our own tone. So we might be very drawn to somebody and not know why, or why we're like wanting to be in this person's space or around. A lot of times it's because we're harmonized to them. And when we're not, we could feel it like we just even can't be around them. Like even the sound of their voice irks us. So this in ancient medicine, the drum was always, I use my drum. I made my drum. I built my drum. I birthed my drum. It literally felt like I was giving birth to a child, to massage the skin and to wrap it around the frame and then create the different chords that go to that you hold. That's all you. And so when I use that in my sound healing, it's speaking through me. And so I use it and I'll to ground, like let's say you feel very like confused or um not connected to things. A lot of times that's just because you're not grounded. And the best instrument for that is drum, because it brings you to your heartbeat and it brings you to the earth, right to the earth. And so there's other instruments like tuning forks, which would be more for vibrational therapy. Tuning forks are used in the etheric field to harmonize and clear out those densities. Um, there's also, like I played initially, our chimes, and that was tuned to what they call water. So whenever I play those chimes, it just immediately makes me feel like I'm flowing and I'm fluid. I used this on a group a couple of weeks ago because everything just felt so scattered and everyone just felt like everyone brought their stuff but wasn't owning it. And as soon as I played those chimes and had everyone sit and picture themselves flowing on a river, everything shifted. And that's how you know the power of vibration and sound. And it's everywhere. Just to even listen to the trees, to listen to the ocean. There's nothing more soothing to me than the rhythm of the ocean and hitting the wave, the beach, and the just all of those things are attuning us. And so whenever you feel like you're out of sorts, I believe the best sound healer in the world is the earth. And just to go lie down in a meadow and listen to the birds and listen to the trees and feel the breeze as it massages your aura and that's the best sound healer in the world.
And I love the work that they're doing around, recordings of the sound vibrations that plants make and that planets make and that different trees make. It's absolutely sublime, the sound of
They
it.
sing. I'll never forget one time I cut a leaf off of what I think it was a flower, and I actually heard the flower cry, and it just really it affected me because I started to realize, like, because like I said, the more I've opened myself to life, I'll call it that, the more I hear it and the more it reaches out to me. So, it's not that we're not supposed to pick the flower. It's not that we can't do that, but we must do it with respect and honor. And always gratitude, always gratitude. And, it's fascinating to me. Another thing I wanted to speak to a little bit is that, through, and I won't go into it because it's all over, the internet, but there are studies about how words also carry vibration. And I'm a big word person. So I, even after learning the power of negative and positive, have changed how I speak to people and how I even address my children. So I lift the vibration. It's no different than if someone says, "Oh, I've had a terrible day," or saying, "Oh, my day hasn't been that great." it carries a totally different vibration when someone all of a sudden uses the word terrible or bad. So you could say the same thing, I've had a bad day, or my day's not going so great. It's, not such a great day. It
Yes,
carries,
I think it was Dr. Masaru Emoto,
yeah,
I think, who did it.
emoto. Well, what he did was brilliant, right? He put bowls of, or I would say they actually went even further with it, but if you just say words into the water, it would show up as different mandalas or different shapes and sacred geometry. And that's another thing. We are sacred geometrical shapes. So again, if you're in a sound bath and you're hearing, the tone that is resonating with, say, your solar plexus is right here. Most of us have a lot of like digestive issues and things that are affected there. So if you hear those tones that attune that area, all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh my gosh, like you're going to feel things, you're going to, and same thing with the woman is the, you know, when you go into that area of creation, that's your creativity, that's your ability to trust your ideas. It's also where you birth or don't birth. So it has so much energy and heaviness there that when you clear the sacral chakra with sound, also again, it can regulate somebody's menstrual cycle. It can help ease hormonal issues, things like that.
Samora, in all your sessions as a sound and vibrational specialist, has there been one particular, healing that was memorable or profound experience that stood out that you could share with us?
I would say every single one to date. Particularly, I had, okay, so there was a garage, like an independent structure where a friend of mine has a room above the garage and was having all this water and flooding issues on this structure. It was really frustrating him because it was affecting his trees and things like that. So we had decided we would go there and just do, not for the purpose of that, but just for the purpose of doing a sound bath, that we would go up there, and I brought all my stuff, my bowls, my Tibetan bowls, everything. And so we did, it was like 4 or 5 of us in the space, and I did this thing. And he said, ever since that, the flooding has stopped, and also the trees are different. And I wasn't even outside, I was inside. And then he said one day, like there were times where he couldn't even look at that structure because it had caused so much drama for him, that now he calls it the upper room. And what was fascinating to me is that ever since he named that space the upper room, I've heard that term 4 times in different sound healings that I've done. Because after I do a sound bath, I'll ask people to share their experience. 4 different occasions, people have used that they went to the upper room. So I had to go back to my friend later and say, that's not the physical space. It's actually the portal. The portal is the upper room. So I was like, okay, so now I understand that it's my medicine that is taking people to what they're calling the upper room.
For people considering trying a sound healing session for the first time, what advice or suggestions do you have for them?
I think the best experience is when you don't go on a full stomach. And water is a conductor. So just like Emoto had studied, that water also increases the vibration, or it's a carrier, right? It's a conductor. So going hydrated will bring a faster result and also a more maybe intense result, but also fasting is a big deal.
Thank you. Great suggestions. Samora, are there any book recommendations that you have about, people who would like to learn more around sound healing and the practice of sound healing and vibration and all of that?
Well, I would say there's a lot of great YouTube videos of, like, if you're, let's say you're having trouble sleeping, I would suggest going on to YouTube and finding the vibrations that are attuned to insomnia, and listen or have them play while you're sleeping. Books are great, but I don't think this is something that I feel um is so effective to read about as much as it's to experience. So I would say video is maybe more, you'll know if it's something you need because you'll consume it. If it's not something you need, more than likely you'll turn it off right away. Not so much the case if you're in a therapeutic scenario where I can say, well, you're supposed to be uncomfortable until you're comfortable, where you're not necessarily going to want to go through that maybe on your own.
Great suggestion. Samora, as a sound healer and vibrational specialist, what is your overarching vision for the future of sound healing? And then what is your overarching message to the world around sound healing?
Well, we're all made of sound. And whether you're religious or not, there's that. If you look at every faith and every, even indigenous attunement, they're always a creation story around a tone that happened in the very beginning of the world being created. And in the Bible, what does it say? In the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was God. Now, the thing is that all of the sacred names throughout history that are spiritual names all have the tone ah in them. So Allah, God, Buddha, all of them have the ah sound. And the ah, oh gosh, I have chills. Okay, so the ah points to the sound of creation. And amen. And if you say the term om correctly, it starts with om, om. So everything that is at the basis of creation is the sound ah. And it opens your heart. It is the heart tone. And as we know, it opens up our voice to be heard, to be understood, to sing ah, right? So just doing ah can open up your entire system. And so what is my overarching message to the world? Is stay true to you through the heart. Do what's right in your heart, because when you do what's right, what opens your heart is also going to heal you, and it's going to reverberate out to the next person and the next person and the next person. So I feel that this is medicine for the future, because I do believe it's already existed as a medicinal modality and was crushed at a certain point when I guess pharmaceuticals and other things were wanting to be used for the very same thing that sound can heal. And there's an actual place you can go in Colorado where they've attuned these booths just with tone to cure disease. And you can just sit in these booths and have it attuned to cancer, attuned to different ailments, MS, all these things, and it's working.
Thank you so much for, as always, sharing the incredible wealth of information that you have. I think it's amazing. And for those of you in the audience who are watching for the first time and seeing Dr. Samora for the first time, she is actually also an ordained minister who has married, I think,
2,800.
2,800 couples to date. She also happens to be the assistant director of the New Seminary for Interfaith Studies, which we did an incredible interview around that. So if you'd like to watch that or listen to that, we'll put the link below. And then on top of it, she is also an adopted member of the Lakota tribe who recently was chosen for her naming ceremony. And we did another fascinating interview around that, which we'll put the link below. You hold sound healing sessions in New York City, right? In person and online. And so I'd love to share the link with that if it's available. And if you'd like to reach out to Samora, please do in the comments, and we'll put her contact details below. I want to say thank you again, as always, from the bottom of my heart, for just the ray of light that you are in the world, the rainbow warrior that you are, and more than anything, for really, I feel like you are an instrument and a channel for the medicine of the future. Thank you for being that.
Wow. Well, thank you, Gaia. Thank you for being the curator of amazing information and learning and tools for people to expand themselves as human beings, as heart, feelers. Just all of us being connected in this way is going to just create a better society overall. And I do travel. My goal, my overall vision for what I do is not just in one place. I do feel that I have a calling to bring this out to the world and out to the community in the way that Creator is showing me.
Thank you again, Samora. Take care.
Thank you, Dok Shake.